Hi, this is a video to help troubleshoot forest metrics and urban forest metrics for some confusion that people might have if they're unfamiliar with iPads and iPhones or databases. Because urban forest metrics, these are applications that essentially are databases. Think of it like Microsoft Excel or Word. The templates that we provide allow you to produce additional documents, perhaps one for each client. So you're creating documents, which are database files, and those database files have records like trees and visits to trees and different locations, things like that. And keeping that data model in your mind can be important for reducing confusion as you're using the system. So one problem that people will find sometimes that is probably the most confusing is when they wind up doing something in the interface that causes a find to happen. They may be explicitly searching for a certain type of tree. Let's say a tree that has a certain species, that is of a certain DBH, and maybe hasn't been visited in the last year. But they've added in so many criteria to that search that there are no trees that meet the criteria. Well, what will happen is the database will show 0 trees. And when that happens, you can't click in on the species like we can do here. You can't click in on the species list and choose a different species because you're not on a particular record. And it looks like it's funky. But this is actually exactly what we want to have happen. We want to give you the power to be able to do a search and find nothing. It's very easy to navigate from here. So here's an example of that, where I have done a search and it has found nothing. And if I try to click in on the species, it says, hey, there's no records present, you can't change the species for nothing. And this is the condition that you would find very confusing. It's very easy to get out of this. We just click on this circle down below, which allows us just to show all the records. And now here's the whole set of records. Now, when I have a particular set of records found, like let's say I'm going to do a find function, and I'm going to say, show me all of the alders, and show me the 12-inch alders, and I do the search, it found 1. So there's one 12-inch DBH alder in this set. Now down here I can say, well, show me all but this one. And this one menu item allows me to do that, show omitted. So of all the trees here, close to 100 trees, we found 1 tree, but now I've found the omitted ones. So essentially this is showing all but the one I found. So that's how you can navigate around and get different sets of trees. We can even do multiple search criteria on top of each other. But if you do that and you find yourself in that situation where you have no record showing like this, it's very simple. You click the circle down here and just say show all, and then you're done. So that's probably the single most confusing thing to people who aren't used to using a database. The next thing is when you are using a map and the map's not drawing. And that can be for a few different reasons. The most frequent reason we see is people assume they have internet access where they are, but then they go somewhere and they don't. And it might be because they're using the cellular internet and they just have bad cell access. It might be because their Wi-Fi has been grabbed by the local hotel that they're nearby, or somehow their device has glommed onto a Wi-Fi network and the network isn't providing you real internet access. This happens. We find that happens a lot around hotels. And that will, cause a dead end where it's trying to go to the internet through a mechanism where it doesn't get internet, and of course your map won't draw. Another more mischievous problem we see that's similar is one of those networks will grab your Wi-Fi connection, and then if you happen to be using the GPS locate button in order to put in your GPS location, normally it would use the GPS chip. which will figure out via the satellites where you are and put in a latitude and longitude. But sometimes when there's a Wi-Fi network attached, that Wi-Fi network will insert its Wi-Fi's latitude and longitude into all the trees you do when you're connected to that Wi-Fi network. And this can be fairly disastrous because you may spend hours doing 100 trees around a building and then find that all of the latitudes and longitudes were identical and incorrect. This generally doesn't happen anymore for two reasons. One is because people are now recognizing that they can look at the GPS locations and just make sure that they're not getting the same GPS location time after time. But also, people typically aren't using the GPS chip anymore when they're using urban forest metrics. Instead, they're using our new touch locate button. And this doesn't use the GPS chip. Instead, it's just allowing us to touch a particular location, and then it's calculating the latitude and longitude. So because we have that new mechanism, the GPS issue hasn't been happening. It was pretty rare to start with. So that was those are the first couple mapping issues. And then finally, there's a mapping issue where when you're setting up your iPad, you may have not allowed location services for the app. And Urban Forest Metrics uses an app, a database called FileMaker. And if when you first start up FileMaker, a little dialog box comes up and says, hey, do you want to allow this to use the camera or use location services? If you don't say yes, then those services aren't going to be available to the database. And people don't realize that when they first set it up, or they're just doing quickly and they just press OK, not realizing that they're denying permission to the app. And there's an easy way to fix that. What you would do is you'd go out of the FileMaker, go app, you go to your settings app, which looks like this. And then within your settings, you'll see all sorts of categories on the left-hand side of types of settings. But toward the bottom, you'll see a list of all of your apps. And you just scroll down until you'll find FileMaker. That's the database. You click on that, and then you'll see a list of permissions here. And you want to make sure that location, the microphone if you want to do voice notes, the camera if you want to take pictures for trees, and cellular data. You want to make sure all of those are on for that app. And if a few of those aren't on, like location services or cellular data, you're not going to see a map draw. And this also is pretty useful for a few other things, like for instance, the microphone is going to be necessary. If I click on the notes field here, I can put in, just by speaking, this is a note about an alder tree. And it will go ahead and type out the text I just stated. And of course that will work only if the microphone is allowed on with the app. So those are some quick troubleshooting tips. Feel free to email us with other issues that you think might be particularly useful for people unfamiliar with the app or unfamiliar with iOS, the iPad, the iPhone, and we're happy to make a little more snippets of videos to help guide people through. Thanks for watching.